everybody, I'm Visibly Riley, and welcome to my tournament report for the Emerald Dragon GT. This is a culmination of a series of low point battles I've been playing on the channel recently, featuring a smattering of armies, but mostly this elf army I specifically made for the event. Emerald Dragon GT is a 2-day event with 5 games. 3 games are held on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. It is 1950 points with a mandatory 340 point dragon attached to it. There are the dragon is specific to the event, so there are 5 of them to choose from. They all have bonkers rules. If you want to check them out, there is a link in the description. But if you've been on the channel, you've seen, I think, all the good ones. So anyway, you can check that out. The event had prizes for, or at least the top rankings were for best overall, best general, best painted, and best sportsman. All of those scores featured in your best overall score, but best sportsman and best painted up here is done by rubric, meaning that generally speaking, your best sportsmanship prize goes to someone that, or you gain and lose sportsmanship points based off of were you on time for your games, did you bring all your stuff, did you submit your list with enough time for the TO to okay it, and then of course favorite opponents votes. Then best painted is mostly a question of intention than it is execution. So the question is not did you do a wow factor or some subjective nonsense like that. Instead it'll say, did you try to do at least 3 executions of freehand? Did you try to do an advanced blending technique? Here is a list of examples, and so on and so forth, for the vast majority of the 50 points there, with 5 or 6 points only attainable if you really pushed yourself. So like if your execution is to a decent level. Then of course battle is battle, and an overall combined them. If you're one of those people that hate soft scores because, and most people that I find do hate it because they don't want to, they want to know who quote won the event and don't want someone to pass someone with painting points. But here's my suggestion to you. At the end of this tournament report, I will be going through the results and I will talk about each category and who won where, right? So just pick the category you think is the winner of the event, and that's the one that won the event. So there you go. With that said, let's move on to game 1, which featured my elves versus the herd in the raise scenario. So first off, let's go through my opponent's list. It featured 3 troops of tribal hunters, followed by a horde of tribal warriors with the hammer of measured force, 3 hordes of guardian brutes, one of whom has the brew of sharpness, a Lycan alpha with Dark Lord's onyx ring, a shaman with Blizzard 2, and then 2 chimerae with wings. The special dragon my opponent chose was Shenron. So Shenron is the dragon that gives everyone +1 speed while within 5 inches of him, and then has a bunch of other special rules to go with it. But yeah, as for my thoughts on the list, I don't get the tribal hunters. I think they're interesting, but I'm not exactly sure on the points, but I'd rather just bring centaurs, right? The bows if I'm gonna bring a troop of small shooting units. But otherwise, I think the list is okay. I don't like Blizzard on that shaman. I would swap it for another spell like Alchemist's Curse, maybe, or just straight heal on shamans with Shroud of the Saint is so good. So that's probably the way I would go, just not Blizzard. Otherwise, I think the list is fine, and in fact quite deadly with that Guardian Brute core. Shenron, an interesting dragon choice to go with it. I probably would have gone with Imerlolth or Nyx personally, just because this list is not really fast enough to abuse Shenron. But anyway, I digress. Let's go over my elf list for the first and final time of this video. So first off, we have 2 hordes of kindred archers, one of whom has the Heart-Seeking Chant and the other the Chant of Hatred, so we have the Chant Bros back. Then we have 2 regiments of Forest Shamblers, a horde of Draken Riders with the Brew of Strength, a regiment of War Chariots with Fire Oil, an ASB with the Diadem of Dragonkind and a mount, a mage with Alchemist's Curse 10 and a mount, 2 elven princes, both of whom are mounted and have saber-toothed pussycats, and then a tree herder with Blessing of the Gods and Blizzard 2. The special dragon I brought was Nyx, and this list hasn't changed at all, so I'm pretty happy with it. And yeah, that's about it. So let's go into the game itself. So here we see the setup for the table. Let's talk about the terrain first. So down here we have a height 4 hill. Right above it we have a height 1 obstacle. Then to the left of that we have a height 6 forest. Below that, we have a height flat piece of terrain. Above that, we have another height flat piece of terrain, or a difficult terrain, I should say. Then we have over here to the left of that, a height 1 obstacle. Below that, I think these are height 6 impassable. I know I asked Tom this at the TO of this event many times during it, what they were, but it never came up for me. But I think they're height 6. Then we have, generally they're height 4, but I think they're height 6 now. Anyway, moving on, we have a height 6 forest over here. And we have another height X impassable. Then we have another height 2 hill right here. And an interesting thing about this terrain is that it's purposefully placed so there is no terrain in deployment zones, which is, well, it's an approach, I guess. It's not what I would do, but I always like playing in events that, you know, aren't the way I would do it. Raise is a relatively simple scenario. First off, you've got a center objective that's always there. Then each player places one of their objectives 6 inches off of the center line, right? So 18 inches up from your board edge. You place them on your opponent's side of the field. So I've got one here, here, and here. They do have to be 12 inches away from any other objective, so that's why this one is off in no man's land for me. And then my opponent has one here, here, and there's one, I believe, under the tree herder here. But yeah, so the objectives are burnable in this one, which is pretty fun. You basically, if you dominate the objective, you then destroy it immediately and just place it in your little pile, and then you get 1 VP for each one that you destroy. You cannot destroy or do really anything with the ones on your side of the field. You can only contest them. And then the center one you can't destroy, you just control it at the end of the game. It's worth 1 VP. Let's go through deployment now, starting with my opponent's half of the field. Right here, we have the first troop of tribal hunters, followed by the second troop of tribal hunters, both of whom have vanguarded forward already. Then we have the tribal warriors with hammer of measured force. We have 1-2 hordes of brutes just hanging out in the middle of the field. We have the second troop of tribal hunters. Again, they vanguarded forward. We have 1 chimera, Shenron, the second chimera right there. And then we have the brutes here with the, was it Brew of Sharpness? So quite deadly. And finally the Lycan Alpha with the Dark Lord's Onyx Ring. So yeah, it's a pretty centralized battle, I guess. There's really 2 lines. There's this one, and then there's the flankers over here. But I don't really get that. Anyway, we'll go over that later. For the elf deployment, starting on the left, we have my regiment of chariots with fire oil. Then we have the first horde of archers. Those are the ones with heart-seeking chant. Behind them is the first prince, right there. Then to the right of those archers is the second prince. Ahead of them is my tree herder, and then ahead of that tree herder is the first regiment of shamblers. The tree herder has Blizzard and Blessing of the Gods, and they have vanguarded forward. Then we have the second unit of shamblers who have also vanguarded forward. Behind them is my mage with Alchemist's Curse. To the right of her is my Nyx dragon. And then finally we have the last horde of archers with the Chant of Hatred. So this was what I didn't get. My opponent outdropped me in this game, I think pretty well, like 2 or 3 drops, because I had to drop first, and deployed a strong, you know, right flank, or to him a left flank, right? But most of my army, right, so I had deployed almost all this stuff. I guess I'd put my chariots here, but I think I would have tried to rotate around these impassables, as my opponent brought Shenron first off, which is a great flyer, great dragon, and then 2 Chimerae, right? I have no flyers besides Nyx. Well, I have the Draken Riders, who are somewhere. I think they're over here with the ASB with Diadem and Dragonkind. But I don't really have any flyers. I could have put the Drakens to fight them, but I can't fight all that. So I don't know. I probably would have tried to abuse the Impassable personally. But yeah, I'm not sure what the strategy was, and we'll see in the future. Maybe as the game progresses. So let's go on to turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the herd, which is I think I actually gave my opponent turn 1 so I could move forward and grab the objectives and burn them at the end of the game if I wanted to. Either that, or they won the roll and chose to go first, because both of us want the herd to go first, I think, here. So first off, we have the tribal warriors running to the obstacle. They cannot go over it, so this is what they end up doing. We've got the brutes keeping up with them in the back here, just maintaining kind of a battle line, almost a battle line. The shaman moving forward to cast blizzard, and the rest of the line just moving to the edge of this barrier. I'm not entirely sure why you would move this battle line forward. Again, especially towards an obstacle, I probably would have veered it more towards the center. I know my Drakens are over here, but you can point both the Lycan Alpha and the Chimerae, or even Shenron at them. You just don't need to put the brutes right behind a wall. They could have walked into this forest, as they do have... No, they don't have Pathfinder either, do they? Yeah, kind of a... You know, that's just a bad place for them, I think, with the no Pathfinder. But anyway, that's where they go. And my opponent's only shooting is Blizzard, which I believe hits once and does 0 wounds to the Shamblers. Oh no, there's plenty of shooting. What am I talking about? And then all the... we've got the Tribal Warriors here, shoot at the Shamblers and do 1 or 2 wounds. Maybe it was this one, and then I think these ones end up shooting at my chariots and doing like 1 or 2 wounds there. So it's all right. Here's the end of the end shot. So yeah, this chariot does take 1 wound. The Shamblers take 2. So, and you can see the Draken Riders and the ASB are in fact over there on the right. So yeah, that's the end of turn 1 for the herd. It's not terribly exciting, but you know, that's herd turn 1, right? They just sort of run forward. And here is Elf turn 1. So Elf turn 1 is always an interesting one, as elves really need to be, or at low point games, especially with this much shooting as I have, you need to be doing your damage in turn 1 and turn 2. Ideally, because turn 3 is your decider, right? So like you want to get your pip damage from your 2 archer hordes out there, so you can just kill off whatever takes the most damage. But anyway, I do decide to charge with both of my Shamblers here, just because my opponent gave me this charge, and I'm pretty sure my Shamblers, well, I mean, they're a 4+ melee unit, but these tribal warriors, or the tribal hunters, I think are only an 8-10 nerve. So yeah, I just go right by them, get a charge there, with some average dice here. I can get 4 or 5 wounds on them, and then that's a pretty easy roll. And even if I fail the roll, I don't fall back, because I can't fall back an inch. I'll hit the brutes. They can't fall back an inch because the shaman's there, so we just stare at each other, and there's nothing that can see me. So there's no reason not to do it. So yeah, I go for that, and then these Shamblers go for this easy charge into the front of the Brew of Sharpness brutes. They will almost certainly be ravaged for this. There's just too much damage back here to deal with, but still, I want these brutes out of the fight so I can deal with these speed elements. I don't want these brutes charging into something along with any number of these units, right? Because they'll just wreck it, right? They've got 24 attacks. I think they're Thunder 2, either Thunder 2 or Thunder 1, and then they're Crush 1, right? With 3+ to hit due to Brew of Sharpness. No thanks. And they have Fury, and they're like a 15-18. Nah, I'm not dealing with that. I move the Archer Horde here onto the hill, just because why not? This is not anything. It's just a piece of the hill again. And then I move Nyx within 18 inches of several targets, just so I can choose what I want to push backwards. And then the other archers were already in range, so I'm going to be going with these chariots. The one cat here I can throw at this troop. I want to kill off this troop basically, and then I'll probably choose one of these units to just throw some damage into real quick with my archers. So let's see what happens. Oh, and then I have an easy blizzard target, which is my opponent's shaman. I am elite. I can see him popping that shaman. I think it's the only inspire in the army. The Lycan inspires itself, but nothing else. So yeah, if I pop that shaman out, there's just no inspiring. So let's see what ends up happening. And this is the end of turn shot. So yeah, my battle cat goes a little nuts, and with the help of these chariots, kills off the troop here. My archers, looks like they didn't do terribly well. Oh, they shot at these brutes, but all these units have cover due to the height flat rough terrain here. So I do like 2 or 3 wounds, which is okay. The blizzard does not do too well. I hit with 1, and then I actually only manage 1 wound. Oh, I do remember something weird happens. My chariots actually hit 3 times on these guys and roll triple ones, which is kind of funny, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I get 1 wound onto this shaman. And then with Nyx, I think Nyx also... Oh yeah, Nyx goes for this Chimera. So when I go for the Chimera here, it's in Shenron's bubble, so its charge range is 22 inches, meaning that I need to hit with 5 Wind Blasts to make it so that Chimera cannot charge me. So I'm gonna try for it, but I only end up getting 3. I push it back, or 3 or 4? Maybe it was 4, but no, it was 3 because this Archer Horde then shot at it, but which only manages 1 wound, which is unfortunate, but still, my plan here was to go kill off one of the Chimera if I can, trying to snipe out the Inspire if I can, and then take down this the troop that was here, and then this damage doesn't really matter where it goes. And I did accomplish a bit of that, and in combat, I managed to kill off this troop, which is great. I did get a waiver on this shaman, which is pretty funny, as I only managed 1 wound on it. But I do get the waiver here. I turn around. The brutes can't see me. None of this can see me. Again, these shamblers are going to be a big problem for my opponent. These shamblers managed to do like 1 or 2 wounds with a hindered charge here. I don't really care too much. They should be dead on this counter pretty quickly here. But doing their job, keeping the brutes back there so I can just shoot. And we move into... Oh, just a second shot. And we move into turn 2 for the herd. So turn 2 herd, everything just runs forward. You can see the warriors here just pop over the barrier, walking towards my chariots. The archers that were up here on this hill realize that there's just nothing to do over here. This hill is looking directly at a forest and directly at these giant friggin' crystals. So who cares? And they decide to walk into the woods to also shoot at the chariots, or to shoot at the chariots. They're engaging them, along with the warriors there. The brutes just move forward. This is interesting due to the shamblers in the back, but, you know, maybe just tempt fate. Then we've got the Chimera here. This was the one on the right. It just flies into the woods, while the wounded Chimera and Shenron both charge into Nyx, so a nice little double charge there. My opponent was going to go for a triple charge, but actually couldn't because they decided to use the exceptional base size and make their Shenron on a 75. Shenron, as written in the rule packet, is on a 50 by 100 base. If they had left it on that, then it would have been 3 50s, which could have triple charged my Nyx here and maybe killed it off. But as it was, with the 75 being in the exact center, it makes it so it's 2 corner charges, which is illegal. So anyway, gets a double charge at least. The Guardian Brutes decide to kill off my Shamblers alone. I probably would have sent the Lycan Alpha, as the Lycan Alpha, all it's done is run around over here. It originally wanted to just sort of face like this, and then I reminded my opponent, like that, that the Draken Riders, which are off screen right now, are height 3, can see over this hill, and will just rear charge that Lycan Alpha and kill it. So my opponent runs around over here. I probably would have gone for the side into the Shamblers because the Lycan Alpha has not gone that far over. But anyway, you know, I'm not the one playing the herd army. So that is what the herd ends up moving. I think this shaman just sits still. It's in the back arc of my Shamblers. Still, I could just turn him all the way around and then just cast Surge. But it's relatively safe back there, I guess. And here is the first double one of the tournament, and it's for my opponent. They do 1 extra wound to my chariots and roll double ones. It doesn't really matter, his chariot regiment is 13-15, but still, funny shot. And here is the end of the turn. So on the left, yeah, this was a double 1 from the archers doing 1 wound. Then we have the shaman can't do anything. The Shenron and the Chimera, now I don't think they kill Nyx on average, because Nyx is giving them a -1 strength, or -1 to wound bubble, so it's essentially def 6 against melee. So yeah, going in with that Chimera, it's got 7 attacks on 3, so, you know, if you're feeling lucky, you get 5 hits, and then you wound me on 5s, so 2 wounds there, and then Shenron has, I think, 10 attacks on 3s. So again, if you're feeling lucky or generous, it's 3 misses off, so 7 hits, and then maybe 4 wounds, so like 6 wounds. That's going to be an 11 to kill me. That's not enough, and my opponent doesn't even manage the 6 wounds. I think it's 4. So yeah, backs off, but does get the disorder on Nyx, which is a big deal. Now this is super unfortunate. My opponent charges in with the with the brutes and hits me with like, man, a lot of attacks. It's like 18 hits or 19 hits or some crazy amount. Then rolls to wound and just completely flubs it. Only manages to put 5 wounds onto these unsupported shamblers and doesn't kill them with the roll. So yeah, that was an unfortunate dice roll, as you definitely need to have these Lycans in, or these brutes into the fight as quickly as possible. So that's why I was saying I would have taken this Lycan Alpha here and gone into the flank of my Shamblers, because if you fail to prepare, then you should prepare to fail. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it happens. And we move into turn 2 for the Elves. So turn 2 Elves. Yeah, so first off, we've got the Draken Riders that are off screen the entire battle report, and now they're a proxy base going into the side of Shenron, with Nyx also becoming a proxy base to go into the front of Shenron. I have my Shamblers here going back into the Brutes with the Brute Sharpness. I have my Shamblers back here sort of in the background. They had a rear charge on these Brutes, and I was like, well, I'll take that rear charge. I'm not sure if they can kill them, because again, they're a 4+ unit, but I should be able to get a waiver, and that'll force the Fury charge to go backwards, which is what I want. I don't want them going this way. The other Brutes, I just throw, you can see the Prince's little fairy here that I use as the cats, just getting in the way of those Brutes to make sure that my Tree Herder, who had a flank charge onto the Chimera, does not get charged as well. And then otherwise we move into what happens. So here is the end of turn shot. You can see on the left here, I took these chariots, I fired into the little troop in the woods here. I don't do too well on the hits or wounds, but I roll lights out for the nerve check, and there's no inspire, so they're dead. I take this prince that had thrown a cat at the other troop. I charge into the warriors, and I make sure that it's greater than 6 inches from the edge of his base to the front of the chariot, so there's no overrun possible. Although there's also an impassable here, so there's just no overrun possible, period. But yeah, I managed 2 wounds there. I don't get the boxcar. I think those ones are the waverable ones. The tribal warriors, I think it's the spirit warriors you can't waver. The brutes here are gone because that rear charge went nutso, killed them off. The brutes here are gone because I combined fire with my archers and alchemist curse and a breath attack from my ASB, who is a friggin' Gatling gun, and I just destroy those brutes. It is rough. So yeah, they're blown out of the water. My tree man kills off the Chimera. Nyx and the Draken Riders kill off Shenron, and then my Shamblers manage a wound. Looks like they're at 5 wounds now onto the what are these called? The brutes with the Brew of Sharpness, and just get ready for another charge. See if they can kill them this time. But things are looking pretty good right now. The Shamblers turn to face like so. Looks like I hadn't turned to face with the Draken Riders, but I think I fixed this later. But we'll see. Moving into turn 3. So turn 3. I think this is just yeah, this is just a regular shot. So turn 3. For the herd. I like this dice tower, right? This hill is terrible. He used to be at the game store I was at, and I was there when we built it, and it was built for 40k, not for anything with real bases. So anyway, so over here on the left, you can see the tribal warriors go into my prince, hoping to at least get some kills there, as right now nothing from the elf team has died. We're all healthy. So yeah, going in there. We have the Chimera and the Lycan Alpha just noping out of here, running to the other side of the field. And then we have the Brutes. The remaining Brutes going into the Shamblers, 3rd time's the charm, I guess. And that's it for my opponent. So let's see how that goes in this shot. Yeah. It's just showing off the combat. And then here is the end of turn shot. So this prince does not die, just gets wavered by a horde of warriors with the Hammer of Measured Force. Ugh, that's rough. The Lycan, I believe I shot with this horde of archers and had done 5 wounds to it. So it regens down to 2 wounds, which is pretty good. And the shaman just backs up to cast Blizzard. I believe it casts Blizzard at No, I think my opponent casts Blizzard at the herder, which does essentially nothing because it's def 6. And it also, well, it has cover, but who cares? Because Blizzard doesn't care. But, and then the man of the hour, the brutes go in here. They don't kill off the friggin' shamblers. So that's 3 turns of, 3 turns of combat coming this next turn for the shamblers. And they're still alive and kicking, which is very weird to me. But moving forward to Elf turn 3. So Elf turn 3 looks like so. I've got the Prince just standing in front of this horde because he doesn't need to move. They will move out of my way. I move my Wizard over here so I can cast Alchemist Curse onto them if I want. They're only def 4, but still, it's a 4+ a wound. I believe I also have the Chimera in range, but we'll see about that. So if we go back a couple pictures, you can see that these shamblers right here, my opponent's Chimera has just flown by them, and I think a lot of people forget that shamblers, in fact, shamble. And I do have a Surger over here with the Tree Herder, so these guys are just going to turn around and face right at this. So they just turn, they move their max distance to get into the side of that Chimera. I move the Tree Herder to get within 12 to cast Surge on him. He also has Elite, it's a 1-inch Surge, so not particularly difficult. And once that goes off, I can then shoot at this Lichen, although it'll still have cover due to the height flat terrain, but still. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I move a Prince, I just run directly at this Shaman with him so he can't get away. I take my Shamblers and go back into the Brutes. I run forward with these Archers because I don't have anything. Well, I mean, I could have turned with the Archers here and maybe shot at the Lichen or at the whatchamacallit, the Shaman, if I hadn't put the Draken Riders here, but there's just no point to it because I can run forward with them here and there's a token right over here, so I'll just burn it and get the victory point real quick. Otherwise, the other archers just sit still, as does Nyx and my ASB. My Nyx and ASB stood still because I forgot about them. They 100% should have moved, and I probably would have gone for the Lycan Alpha or the Shaman for the shooting, but I didn't, so there they are. Here is the end, here's my double one, my first double one of the tournament. I ended up getting these guys to 6. I double won it. It again doesn't matter, but still funny. And here is the end of turn shot. You can see the Chimera is still alive, which is surprising from that flank charge. I managed 5 wounds on the Alpha using the archers here, but it's not, it doesn't really matter too much. And then, yeah, Nyx doesn't have any targets or anything, and the archers can't shoot. So not the best turn here, but it was still pretty good, and I'm in such a dominant position. I don't need a great turn. But my opponent sure does, so let's look at turn 4 for the Herd. So turn 4 Herd. The Lycan Alpha just turns all the way around to face my my Draken Riders and the Prince, I guess. The Chimera that I had charged, I only did 3 wounds to it. That's rough, but I guess I've been rolling so well that, got to get it somewhere. So the Chimera just flies off over here to protect this token for now. The warriors go back into the Wavered Prince looking to kill it, and the friggin' Guardian Brutes are like, all right, we can definitely kill these Shamblers, right? Prove to me that we can't. So yeah, it goes in there hoping to get the kill finally. And let's see, and then we've got the Shaman back here just looking for a target. I think that this is when it shot at my Herder and does not really do anything, but anyway, here we go. The Shaman definitely does not do anything. If it shot at the Herder, it didn't do anything. And if it shot at the Archers, it didn't do anything. So it just didn't do anything. The Warriors, on the other hand, did manage to kill off my Prince, and they reform like so. Keeping my Chariots, and I believe they're trying to keep the Herder in the front. And then we have the Brutes finally killing off those stupid freaking Shamblers. So a little clap for them. And we move forward. So turn 4 for the Elves. You can see I have in fact killed I burned 1 objective so far. So turn 4 Elves. I'm sorry, I burned 2. The Draken Riders were on another one, so I burned the one that was right there. But yeah, so turn 4 for the Elves. We have my archers just staying put to shoot unobstructed at the Brutes. I do move with Nyx this time, looking to get a Wind Blast. I actually over-moved with Nyx here. Nyx should have moved right around here. I'm not afraid of the Guardian Brutes charging her. It doesn't matter, and if I was, I could have just stayed 12 inches or over 12 away, right? Because I wanted to push them this way with Wind Blast, but anyway, they're going to be going this way with Wind Blast. But I do move the ASB here to get on the hill behind the archers to do a breath attack on them as well, so going for a kill. We've got my Shamblers going into the flank of that Alpha. I don't feel the need to put my Draken Riders into it, and in fact I'm just going to chase the Chimera real quick. So I move over there, I send a Prince into the Shaman. I'm looking for a kill, but Shamans are pretty tough, so really I just want a disorder. And these warriors are just sitting in the woods, and I'm like, they're not 50% in the woods though. So my plan is to shoot at them with my chariots, my archers, a blizzard, and an alchemist curse if I need to. Alchemist curse obviously would rather go with the chimera, but you know, I want to kill the warriors more than I want that chimera right now. These archers might not look like they can see the warriors, but it's just the slimmest line of sight to this edge, and we can see them. So let's see how it all goes. First off, I boxcar that Lycan Alpha in combat because that'll show it. So we rolled pretty poorly against those that Chimera, but then we boxcar this Alpha, so I'll take it. And here's the end of the turn. So yeah, we continue rolling pretty well against the warriors. I'm not sure we rolled too well, but we definitely rolled well enough. Kill that off. I don't have to use the Alchemist Curse on it. I roll Alchemist Curse versus the Chimera. Alchemist Curse with Elite continues to be an amazing combination. Ends up getting like 7 wounds, some crazy amount. And then yeah, over here, Nyx does push the brutes over here, so now it would be an unobstructed charge, and I'm like, okay, so I really need to make sure I at least waver it, because these archers do not do really anything to the brutes. They're still on 5 wounds. Then Nyx goes and pushes them like 4 inches over here, 4 or 5 inches, and only does like 1 or 2 wounds. But then Gatling Gun McGee just finishes him off, just puts him straight to double 1 down because the diadem is amazing. So the only remaining model my opponent has is this Shaman fighting against my Prince. I disorder, or no, I don't even hit him. So he's free to do whatever he wants on turn 5. So turn 5 for the Herd. Turn 5 Herd, the Shaman just sort of sidesteps around, looks at my army, picks a target, and shoots it with Blizzard, which I believe the target is Nyx, which is a fine target, I guess. Oh no, I'm sorry. Doesn't shoot at Nyx. Shoots at my ASB, because that's the best target here. ASB is only def 4, is a 10-12. So yeah, gets a waiver, so that's nice. Although the ASB is now pretty superfluous in the game. And we move into turn 5 for the Elves. Here's the shot, just staring down his hated foe, I guess, random wizard. And here is turn 5 of the Elves. So turn 5, I move Nyx into range to shoot at the Shaman if I want to. I decide to not charge it with the Prince because I'd rather shoot. The Draken Riders fly over here to burn down this point. I move the Tree Herder onto this point to claim that as well. The archers here are going to shoot at this Shaman, and I just don't even move these chariots because they don't matter. I do move this wizard. I believe I'm within 12 inches exactly to cast Alchemist Curse again. These archers can already see and actually have an unobstructed shot to that. So yeah, let's see if all the king's horsemen and all the king's bows can kill this shaman. And we do. So that is it for this game. Turn 4 elves killing, or no, I'm sorry, turn 5 elves here. Finishing off my opponent's entire army. I did move the Tree Herder back a little bit because I couldn't see. I could see the Shaman, but it would have given it cover versus these archers. So, and I still have another turn to move on to this objective. So that is what I do on turn 6. I move the Tree Herder up, and here is the end of game shot. My opponent's army is completely tabled. I have lost a Prince and a unit of Shamblers for my trouble, and I have 3, I believe I have 5 points, or is it 4 or 5? I think it's 4 points, because I think this center one's only worth 1. But yeah, 4-0, it's an easy 20-0. So yeah, starting the tournament strong here as we move into game 2. So game 2 was against Forces of Nature, and the scenario was Scavenge. So here is my opponent's army, quite a deadly one. Starting out, we have a Horde of Elohi, followed by the Boulder Guard formation, which involves 2 hordes of Earth Elementals and a Greater Earth Elemental. They all gain Iron Resolve in that formation, so it's pretty solid. Then we have 2 hordes of fire elementals, 2 druids with Banechant 2 and Surge 7, Agni Banu, and then a greater fire elemental. The dragon my opponent brought was Nyx, and you all know how good Nyx is by now, so moving on. My opponent actually showed me this list as he was planning it out back at the last tournament I went to, the 2 tournaments ago at Phalanx. So yeah, he'd already sort of gone through it, but it wasn't until I actually saw it like in person, really could like feel it, that I wanted to make some changes. I suggested that he should bring the Elohi horde before, and I think that was correct. But I look at those hordes of fire elementals and the greater fire elemental, and I kind of wish they were just wind elementals, right? Because I think Wind Blast mixed with Nyx and then Agni Banu could really do some damage. You probably have to lose. You'd have to lose something because the air elemental actually is points while the fire is not. But still, I keep thinking about that idea and I'm like, yeah, I really want that Wind Blast. I think the greater air elemental is amazing. Super good now. But otherwise, meh on the rest of it. Not meh to the list, right? Like meh in terms of I would not make any changes. Boulder Guard is great. Elohi are great. Especially in this scenario where all the dragons impact your allies the exact same as they impact your real army, so just bring Elohi. Here is the setup, so let's talk about the terrain real quick. First off, we have a very large height 2 hill with a height 4 forest on top of it, which we have kindly named One Tree Hill, and this is Sophia's Bush. So right here, whatever. If you didn't watch the CW in the early 2000s, you're probably a better person for it. So yeah, we've got a giant hill and forest combo right there. Then we have a height 4 or height 6 obstacle here. I think there's, you know what? I'm gonna go back and say they're height 4. So anyway, then we have a height 6 forest right here with a height 1 obstacle attached to it. We have a height flat piece of water over here. We have a height 1 obstacle here, probably attached to a hill, but you know, over there the RB dragon, so we're not going in there. We have a height flat piece of terrain right here with another height flat piece of terrain. So these are actually separate. You know, it doesn't do anything because they don't block any line of sight for any unit, but they are separate. So yeah, we have 2 height flat pieces right there, and that's about it. So let's talk about the scenario real quick. So Scavenge is a fun one. I really enjoyed the scenario. First off, you place an objective in the dead center of the table, and then each player takes turns placing an objective on the center line. So I placed one here, my opponent placed one here, so we're not going on that side of the table. No siree. Scavenge, you run forward, and if you dominate one of these points, you get a loot counter out of it at the beginning of your turn. So you have to dominate at the beginning of your turn, basically. So yeah, pretty simple. The person with the highest number of loot counters at the end of the game wins. Each unit can only carry 1 loot counter, and if you ever get into a fight, if you kill a unit with a loot counter in close combat in this one, you can choose to destroy that loot counter instead of trying to pick it up or dropping it. And that's it. Let's go through the deployments. So I don't think I take a picture of the elf deployment. So we've got the 4 shamblers right here. They've both been guarded forward. Then we have the chariots on the left here. To the right of the chariots, we have the first horde of archers with heart seeking. Behind them is our first prince, our fresh prince. Then we have the tree herder to the right of that. It's actually where the proxy base is, not where the model is, with blessing of the gods and elite. Behind that tree herder, we have my wizard with alchemist curse. Then we have the second horde of archers with the chant of hatred. Behind them is Nyx. To the right of that nonsense is the second and final prince. Then we have the Draken Rider and ASB with Diadem of Dragonkind combo. Oh, and the Draken Riders do have Brew of Strength. So yeah, that's about it. I think I did take pictures of my opponent's army though. I did. So on the left here we have Agni Banu. And again, I really like this army because it's a good representation of how quickly you can paint an army once you sort of understand lowering the amount of colors in your palette, right? If you're having trouble with really getting things to go quickly, just take some of the colors out of your palette, right? Like work more with going like, I have a red, an orange, and a yellow, and that's it. That's what I'll use. So you paint all the red, all the orange, and then all the yellow. So because a lot of time is lost in swapping between steps. So anyway, I digress. We have Agni Banu on the left there. Then we have the Greater Fire Elemental. I love this model. It's one of my favorite models from Mantic. I think it's, you know, I do give Mantic a lot of flack on the forums, or not on the forums, but on Facebook now, I guess. But because I don't think their models are quite up to snuff a lot of the time, but I love the Fire Elementals, all of them. I love the little ones, I love the Greater. They're just well worth their purchase. So yeah, we have the Greater Fire Elemental, and then to the right of that, we have a horde of Fire Elementals. Behind them is the first Druid. I think this army is fully Mantic except for the dragon, so really cool looking. I'd never seen that Druid model before. And then we have the Nyx herself. My opponent and I were making jokes where he was bringing Nyx and I brought a different dragon named Nyx. But yep, there's Nyx. Then in front of him we have the first horde of Earth Elementals. To the right of that we have the horde of Elohi. There is another Elohi that goes here, but apparently it broke right before this game, and when my opponent was showing me where it broke, he also then snapped the sword off. So, you know, just insult to injury. Then we have the second and final horde of Greater Earth Elementals right there. And to the right of it, we have the second horde of Earth Elementals. Then we have the Greater Earth Elemental. Behind that, we have the Druid with Surge and Bane Chant. And finally, we have the second horde of Fire Elementals. So let's move into the game itself and get turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the Force of Nature again. Yeah, they don't have a whole lot to do here. They can just move forward. They can't march. They have range attacks, but they're all breath attacks except for Nyx's Wind Blast. So yeah, they just sort of move forward, and that's their plan. And we move into the end. We move into Elf turn 1. So Elf turn 1, most of my army also does not move forward. Because it does not need to, and it does not want to. So first off, I've got these Shamblers keeping a line just out of 12 inches. When I had Vanguarded forward, I made sure I was not within 18 inches to make sure that Agni here, I actually thought this was Agni bonding for a while, but so Agni here could not breathe on me. I don't think this model's Mantic, right? Maybe it is, I don't know. But anyway, so now we're just out of 12. Breath attack can come get me, very long surge. I think if they hit the Surge 7 and move 6 with Agni, they could get me, but I'll eat those odds. And I move forward with these archers because I want to take the hill. I can't see over it, obviously, and I want to make sure that I've got some unobstructed shots, so I just touch the forest, move the one tree to the side as it goes. I am out of 12 as well here. Of the Fire Elementals mostly. I'm within 20 of these Elohi. They can charge at me, but I don't really care if they do. Because if the Elohi solo charge a horde of archers, it sucks because I can't shoot next turn, but I'll probably pick up those friggin' Elohi because I have Draken Riders staring at where the flank goes. I have a Tree Herder, right? Even if they kill me, they can't overrun because I put a prince, like they can't overrun to get out of my line of sight is what I'm saying. Because I put a prince here, all they can do is back up. So yeah, I just think it's good if the Elohi get into me, and I will be shooting at them anyway. So yes, with all my shooting, so I have the archers here and Nyx, and I shoot at the Elohi because I could also just push them out of the charge. If Nyx hits well with her Wind Blast, I'll just push them right out of the charge and just force them for another turn to do nothing, and that'll be that. My Tree Herder is just barely touching the forest. That's where I had Vanguarded forward. And the point of that is now I'm just barely touching the forest, and I am 50% on the hill, meaning I'm height 6. So I can target my opponent's Druid and shoot it with Blizzard, hopefully kill it off, and just make them sad face immediately. So let's see how it all goes. Well, it doesn't go too well. It goes well. I just didn't, roll insane. So I've got the Horde of Archers here and the Chariots fire at Agni Banu. They managed 5 wounds, which is pretty good considering it was all on 5 pluses. With my Wind Blast and my Archers, I push the Elohi back, but I miss it by an inch. I believe I pushed them 4, and again, I needed to push them 5. So yeah, I miss it by 1 inch there. They can still charge my archers, and I do an okay amount of damage. I think I did 5 or 6 points, but they are a -17 with Iron Resolve, so with Inspire as well. So it was a pretty, high roll if I'd managed to kill them off. But yeah, so they're still up and running. And then the Druid, I do hit it with Blizzard, but Blizzard sort of, it's a big bang or no bang here, so I just don't do that well. Statistically, and it's still there. And we move into turn 2. So turn 2 for Forces of Nature. Things go about how I expected them. First off, we have on the left Agni and friends. It looks like, so when my opponent placed this, they had placed it in this like perfect, little rising step formation. And I was like, oh, interesting. They don't want to get double charged by Shamblers maybe, or whatever, but later my opponent told me that they wanted this exactly flush to make it so I couldn't do any surge shenanigans, and I was like, that's very interesting. So yeah, that's what they go for. We have Nyx here in the back, just getting ready to Wind Blast a unit, I believe, going for one of the Shamblers. And the Earth Elementals, this is a very threatening unit. It's probably the most threatening unit on the table right now, which is a weird thing to say. The rest of the stuff I can actually get away from, but this unit, I have to be very careful in how I move my elves, because they can just charge 10, right, generally, but they can just get a surge through and really end up in some flanks, because I want to be going into the Elohi after they finish this countercharge. So yeah, this is a very, very, it doesn't seem great, right, because this army's just marched directly forward, full speed, but yeah, that's a really good spot. Speaking of the Elohi, I did end up doing 6 damage to him because they had Iron Resolve down to 5. They charge it into my archers. Like I said, I'm not worried about that. And I think my opponent was trying to get me to engage with my horde of Drakons, because then these units can engage on them and so on and so forth. And I don't have, I have Drakons for combat unit and my tree herder, and nothing else really is a combat unit, right? Like, these guys can fight, and the princes can fight, but not well. Same thing with the chariots. They're not great. The only good unit I have is really Drakons, so if my opponent kills them off, I'm just shooting and praying. But that's about it. And let's see what ends up happening. Oh, my opponent does. So originally, all the druids have heal 2, and he goes for a heal 2 on the Elohi, and I'm like, oh, you can't heal an ally, right? And he's like, oh, but he had already rolled it, and he rolled a 1 and a 2. Didn't matter anyway. And then I was like, well, you can't heal yourself because you can't cast heal on yourself. Can't heal the Elohi. You can't Bane Chant the Elohi. You can't, you could have Bane Chanted these units, right? But who cares? They don't have range attacks. And you could Surge, but that's a terrible idea. If you surge forward, there's all sorts of weird stuff that can happen or that I can do to you then. So yeah, pretty funny there. And here is the end of the turn. They do disorder the archers. I mean, that is obviously to be expected, but they don't kill them or waver them. So I'm very okay with that. Both of my Shamblers take some pip damage with, again, Nyx targeting these ones, pushing them back. But they're still within 12 inches of this greater fire elemental right here. So, wasn't that big of a deal. They are damaged. And they'll probably go in there and then die, but that's exactly, if they could go in there, kill that greater fire elemental and then die, that'd be perfect, right? That's exactly what I want. Anything more than that would just be like, gravy. So yeah, let's see with turn 2 for the elves. So turn 2 elves, I do take both the Shamblers, go into the front of the greater fire elemental here. I take a prince and I just run it, so it's not exactly 1 inch, because the way you have to run, you run to the edge of, so the 25 going that way, the 50 going this way, or sorry, the 25 millimeter side is right there, the 50 mil side is here, right? So 1 inch away from the 25 is not going to be 1 inch away from that 50 due to the depth. So when I turn here, it's not quite 1, but it's pretty close, and then I will probably throw a cat right into this this prince, or not prince. Wow, I'm a prince. This druid, hoping to kill it off. It's pretty, you know, cats are spiky. And then speaking of that, I move this one over here to, it can just barely see the greater fire elemental past all this nonsense, because there's a line just like between the Elohi and the Drakens, and then these archers are only height 3 on the hill. So also I don't think they're actually on the hill, but anyway, shooting into the greater fire elemental. They're definitely on the hill. What am I talking about? Shooting at the greater fire elemental, and then I have the same thing with my alchemist curse for the greater fire elemental, although that one does take cover, so it'll be a negative. And then I have Nyx here, and I do make a mistake with Nyx, so I just moved directly forward. I wanted to make, originally I didn't move this prince here. Originally the chariots had charged into these guys, so I wanted Nyx for support. But at the end of the day, I didn't need that, and I wish I had rotated Nyx a little bit, because I could have, my opponent's Nyx could have flank charged me, but I give 0 fucks about that. Nyx is terrible at flank charging, and if they do, I have a rear charge with chariots. Even hindered, that's bad. And then, yeah, I wish I had pivoted just a bit more and gone into the forest, right? Because right behind my archers, because what I need to be doing is targeting these greater fire elemental with everything, but I can't see it because my tree herder gets a beautiful flank charge onto these Elohi, which I didn't expect. But yeah, I can't see the freaking greater earth elemental, so it's unfortunate. Because originally I was like, oh, I'll just be height 6, right? Whatever. But it doesn't work that way. And here is, oh, and then my archers plan to, what are my archers doing? I think that they plan to shoot at Agni along with my chariots, just going for a kill there if I can. And here is the end of the turn. Starting on the left, I do some decent damage to Agni. She's sitting on 8 wounds now, but Agni is a dash 19 or some crazy nerve, so unfortunate there. I get the greater fire elemental to 7 wounds. That's all right. It's pretty good actually, but I don't get the kill. I don't roll the 10 twice. I think my opponent used Nyx's reroll on that, because I think I did get the 10 twice and then just turned one of the dice off. But I do throw this cat at my opponent's druid, and I miss with all 5 shots with 0 1s. I roll 5 2s and 1, or 4 2s and 1 3, so that's kind of funny. It's always funny to see it. And then in the middle here, I do kill off the Elohi. That is the bare minimum of what I wanted with my turn, so that's good. I turn the tree herder to face, and then I do an insane amount of damage to this greater earth elemental. It's like 11 damage. I think like 7 or 8, my opponent told me, with just the cat. Right, I just hit it and this cat just rolls insane, and then with my breath attack, alchemist curse, the alchemist curse actually lets me down, and it wasn't on the hit, it just sometimes rolls a bunch of 6s to wound. It does nothing, but it doesn't really matter because I also got these fire elementals, picked them up with the Drakens in one go, and things are looking pretty bad for my opponent on the right flank there. So let's see what their turn 3 can do. So turn 3. So on the left, we have Agni Banu and the Greater Fire Elemental charging into one of the units of Shamblers, with the regular Fire Elementals going into the other unit of Shamblers. We have these Rockmen, the Earth Elementals, going into the side of that Prince. Not that it matters, it's a side. Nyx just stays back. I think that's an interesting play. I wonder if Nyx had charged into my Nyx, right? It's a flank charge from the chariots, but as long as that's hindered, they wound Nyx on 5s. But the big thing is that my tree herder, if they fall back 1 inch, can my tree herder see her? Because if it can't, then this might have been a pretty good charge. Just to turn off my Nyx right now, it's really important that that happens, in my opinion. But anyway, Nyx stays back there, and on the right, the greater Earth Elemental that see, you can see is down to 10 wounds because it has Iron Resolve. These ones took a couple wounds as well from Nyx. I think I pushed them back like 2 inches, but I'd done 2 wounds to them, and Iron Resolve 1 off. So they both charge into my Draken Riders, going for a kill there. That's an interesting one because again, it's a 4+. They're both 4+ melee units, and you know, they could just spike really high or they could roll average, and we'll just have to see. Here is the end of the turn. So starting on the left, Agni and the Greater Fire Elemental kill off my Shamblers and then run the, I think they both went 4 inches forward, hoping to get to my gun base real quick. I think they also created a loot counter this turn. Yeah, I think they created a loot counter on the Fire Elemental. Although Agni might have been the better choice because Agni is not a shambling unit, right? So who cares if it's speed 5 versus speed 6? And then these greater fire elementals go into my Shamblers. Don't kill them because why not? Shamblers are great. And then finally we have I think my opponent's Nyx also just flubbed really hard. Went for my tree herder and did some damage, not enough to get the boxcar. Did not get the boxcar to waver them. And then the big news of the day is that both those units go into my Draken Riders and don't even waver them. I think they're at 11 wounds right now, so it was a 4 to waver, and I didn't use my next rerolls, just rolled a 3. And here we go with Elf turn 3. Elf turn 3, I send yet another Prince forward to mess around with these Earth Elementals that, again, I think are in the best spot on the board because I have no answer to them. I move Nyx back to not be within 6, along with an ASB. I'm going to try to kill them off, but if I can't, I don't want to be within 6 of them. I get a flank charge with this, with my Tree Herder onto the greater Earth Elementals, and yeah, that is a very good charge. And then I just go for the Drakens into the front of the, onto the Earth Elementals. I'm gonna keep calling them graders. I send the Draken Riders into the greater Earth Elemental because it's on 10 wounds. If it weren't on so many wounds, I would have just double charged here to make sure I killed one of them before the Drakens die. But there's a good chance I can kill both if my tree. So my Drakens on average kill off this greater Earth Elemental. On 10 wounds, I've got 18 attacks on 3s and 4s. But if I roll pretty well with the elite Crush 3 tree here, I could just pick both these units up, and then there's nothing my opponent can do over here because the Druid only has 1 attack, no offensive spells. So that's the plan. The rest of my gun base is just going to be picking targets of opportunity. Probably one of these two. I want Agni more than anything. Then the Fire Elemental did pick up a loot token. I don't care if the greater Fire Elemental here comes into me and brings the loot to me, right? That's why I'm going to be targeting Agni. She's both more dangerous, and I want this loot over here, right? I don't want to be chasing it. So that's that. And here is the end of the turn. So yeah, I do manage to pick up Agni. I do a fair amount of damage to the greater Fire Elemental as well. I was trying to just get a bit more pip damage onto it, but I rolled a little bit too high. And yeah, but thankfully I don't kill it. Then the Earth Elementals are killed here by my archers, Alchemist Curse, Nyx, and then a Breath Attack as well, while the Earth Elementals here and the Greater Earth Elemental are killed off by the Drakens and the Big Tree. So now I guess it's 2 Tree Hill, right? I think we'll have to remedy that later in the turn, but things are looking pretty bad for my opponent. Let's see what they can pull back. They are winning, though. That's, something to be said about that. And we move into turn 4. So turn 4 for the Forces of Nature. That's a lot of 4s in a row. We have the Greater Fire Elemental going into my Chariots. And we have Nyx just sort of turning to face my army with these Fire Elementals just moving forward a little bit along with their accompanying Druid. This Druid charges my Draken Riders because my opponent went like, well, if I can't win, I'll pick those dragons up, I think, just because fuck them. The Draken Rider here is not broken, it's magnetized because the claws from that Griffin model just sort of overhang there. And so yeah, I can just pop this one off and charge into units, so I don't have to constantly be like putting a proxy base by just charging something. So yep. My opponent does 4 wounds here, doesn't get anything on the Chariots. Nyx just goes for a cheeky little shot onto my archers, pushes them off the hill, and I'm like, well, why do that? And then boxcars them, so they're also wavered. And I'm like, I wanted those. But alas, not to be. And we move into turn 4 for the elves. So turn 4 elves, pretty simple as well. I'm going to try to pick up these fire elementals. I've sent a prince into Nyx. Again, I just want to turn off that wind blast, and then I can pick up the greater with I don't countercharge with these chariots, and that's one of the things you learn by playing a lot, especially with ranged armies, is that you don't really want to countercharge. If I countercharge here, so this unit is always going to be Pathfinder, but were it not a Pathfinder, right? Like it's a hindered charge. I'm do more damage with my ranged anyway. There's just no reason to charge. I could back up if I wanted to, but if I back up, I allow it to actually bypass my lines. I want to stay exactly here and make it so if it overruns, it can fail to get past me, right? It can fail to get past the guns. So that's what we do. But we are going to be prioritizing the greater fire first, then the little fires, then the druid, right? So that's the plan. The dragon riders countercharge the druid that charged them. That druid did not hit them, so I could have done whatever I wanted, and what I wanted was to murder this thing. So I believe I also have a loot counter here on the dragon riders. I just haven't placed it yet. Yeah, and here is the end of the turn, so everything works out exactly how I wanted it to. I kill the fire elementals here, I kill the greater here, it drops its loot. I have a lot of guns, so like this alchemist curse plus this, plus a blizzard, plus Nyx, plus blah blah blah, right? Like just so many guns. I had picked up a loot counter with, oh that's right, I don't have a loot counter here. I picked up the loot counter with the tree herder because why not? It's only -1 speed. And again, it's not a shambler, it just casts surge. So yeah, I have a loot counter right there. I've picked up all my opponent's units except for this druid and Nyx, who is currently disordered, so all it can really do is run away from me. And we'll see what happens with my opponent's turn 5. So turn 5 is just about a point retention game, and so with that in mind, my opponent can just barely clear the forest here with Nyx, which is it looks like it's under there, but it's not. It can clear it, which is unfortunate because I want to just shoot Nyx, kill her, and then kill this and get another 20-point win. But I'm gonna have to work for it. And yeah, that's it. There's no shooting for my opponent, so we move into turn 5 elves. I do 10 wounds to this friggin' druid, and I double on it because yeah, I mean, this is the most greedy double one where I'm like, I just wanted to kill this druid off and get the 20-0 victory, but I didn't get it. And here is the end of turn 5 for the elves. You can see how everything moved forward. I picked up a loot counter with the dragon riders as well. So I have a loot counter here, I can just start dropping them if I want. I moved my chariots onto that loot counter, so I have another one. I only need one, but why not have them all if I can? I definitely don't want to have one. I want to have at least 2 because Nyx does have a very dangerous range attack, and I don't want to force a crushing victory into a draw because I refuse to pick up a second loot token. So yeah. Moving into turn 6. So turn 6 for the forces of nature. They literally run as far as they can the other way to get out of the range of my arrows, and I'm like, well, why not come here? So we go into turn 6 for the elves, and I move. There's no picture for it, unfortunately, but I can't get in range with this. I can get some shots with the chariots, with these archers, and with Nyx, and then a blizzard. And so I fire into this what is it? The druid. I get the druid. I pick that up. But then Nyx, the only thing I can hit her with is my Nyx and blizzard. And I actually fire Nyx first, and she pushes I guess I fire Nyx at Nyx first, and I push it way too far, and then don't do any wounds, and then I actually push it out of range of blizzard. So that's unfortunate, but kind of funny. I roll a blizzard anyway to see if it would have mattered, but I missed with both those shots. And so at the end of the game, my opponent has Nyx left alive, and that stops it from being a 20-0. So it is a 19-0 as I have, I think 3 or 4 loot tokens to my opponent's 0, and the only thing left is a dragon. While I have lost, I believe, a prince, 2 units of shamblers. I think everything else is alive. So pretty good. Sitting well at the top of the tables at the end of the day when we go into Trident Realms. So we're gonna Elves versus Trident Realm with the scenario being Occupy. And you'll recognize this list as I've played against this Trident Realm player many times, and including in this format. So first off, we have a regiment of Naiad Heartpiercers, followed by a horde of Placoderms with Healing Brew. Then we have 2 hordes of Naiad Worm Riders, Ector, Nikushi, and the Siren, the 3 amigos, and then double Knuckers and a Kraken. The only change to my opponent's list is that they were playing Nyx before and they decided to try Imraloth, and I really like that change. I think Imraloth is a better pick for this style of an army, because you can put stealth on both the Naiad Worm Riders or onto the Plaques or onto whatever you want to help combat shooting, and then the Aura of Rejuvenation really combos well with regen. So yeah, and also Imraloth does a ton of damage. It's a 2+ melee elite dragon with 10 attacks, right? It's only crush 1, but who cares? That thing is amazing. Breath 15 as well. Just beautiful. So anyway, moving forward. Fortunately, I do not have a deployment picture, which I don't know. Well, I actually do know why, which is at lunchtime, we could have bought disgusting hotel burgers or gone and had a growler filled. And so I went and had the growler, and I had just about finished it by the time game 3. Well, no, it was about halfway through it, I think, when game 3 started. So anyway. Let's talk about the terrain real quick. First off, we have a height 2 hill off here on the left. To the right of that, we have a height 6 forest. Right above that, we have a height 6, I think. Again, I think it's supposed to be height 4, but height 6, height 4, impassable. And we're running the entire base as that. In the middle, we have 2 height 1 obstacles, just parallel. Then we have above that a height 6. I believe this is also a forest. We've just removed the trees from it. And then we have another height 4/height 6 impassable right here, which is interesting because there's this piece cut out. And my opponent and I had determined beforehand that we're just going to run the entire thing as a square. So this area right here is actually also impassable. It's invisible. And then there's probably some more stuff on the right, but fuck it. Who cares about that stuff? Anyway, let's talk about the deployment for let's talk about the scenario. So first off, when you're playing Occupy, you deploy one objective in the dead center of the field. Then each player takes turns placing 2 more secondary objectives, right? They have to be more than 6 inches from the table edge, and I believe on your opponent's side of the field. So I deployed, on your side of the field. So I deployed mine right here, just on the 6-inch line touching the forest, and my opponent placed theirs similarly, also touching that forest right there. And then you also deploy 1 primary objective, and these are deployed. They have to be deployed more than 6 inches from a table edge, and then more than 9 inches from the center line, right, on your opponent's side of the field. So this red objective is mine, and it is exactly 6 inches away from there, and then exactly 9 inches away from the center line. So just as close as I could get it in this sort of no man's land over here. And then my opponent placed theirs over here it's definitely at the 9-inch line, but nowhere near the table edge. And that's about it. Let's talk about the elf deployment. So first off, we have the Draken Riders with Brew of Strength right here. To the right of that, we have the ASB with Diadem and Dragonkind. Then we have the Horde of Archers with the Chant of Hatred. Then we have the second Horde of Archers with the Heart-Seeking Chant. We have the Nyx herself, and it looks like she's facing this way, but again, it was I'll blame it on the alcohol. And then we have the Regiment of Chariots with the Fire Oil. We have all 3 of my forest buddies. So first off, we have Tree Daddy moving forward after the this is actually after Vanguard. Then with Blessing of the Gods and Blizzard 2. Then we have both the Shamblers moving forward, staying out of 14 of that Kraken, because no. We have all 3 of my little on foot characters. We have both the princes flanking my I guess I have 4 horse characters, but the center being my mage with Alchemist Curse. And for my opponent's deployment, I'll try to go through it real quick. It's a little hard just because this is actually their turn 1. So we have the horde of Worm Riders back here with nothing. Then we have a Knucker right there. We have the Heart Piercers right here. The Nikushi and Emerald with the second Knucker. I believe all of these were actually over here in deployment and have just readjusted. Then we have the second horde of Worm Riders just holding the center. the Horde of Placoderms with Healing Brew, the Kraken, Ector is right between them, and then the Siren is someone behind that giant Kraken. I know where she is, ish. But anyway, that's that, and we move into turn 1. So turn 1 for my opponent looks a lot like the deployment picture, but basically all the things that were over here relocate to the left side of the field, trying to deny me my primary, I think is the plan here. And then they can just sort of sweep around, right? Because I think the idea is that they'll deny me the primary in the beginning of the game, and then kill any or try to force me into the fight. So the Draken Riders will be, they won't really have anything to do until, this happens. And so if I engage, right, I will then lose that unit and not actually have enough force to actually go get my primary, as I only have one more unit that actually has any speed that can grab it, and that is my dragon. So pretty canny move by my opponent, leaving the center pretty bare, but again, I'm a ranged army, so the center doesn't really matter. And then we have the Placoderms and the Kraken moving forward to clean out the area to get my opponent, for my opponent to get that secondary, because all they have to do is score this and this and keep me from getting into here, right? And they win. So there's nothing I can do about it. And yeah, pretty solid strategy. And I think the Kraken moved exactly within 14 of both my Shamblers, while the Siren has nothing to do. The Ector will be taking aim at one of these units, right, to push them back with the Wind Blast, and then that'll be it for the shooting, as the Heart Piercers and the Kushi are hidden right now. And Emerald only has a breath attack. Oh no, Emerald does pee on these units with its golden mist, giving, these two units, giving the Placoderms stealthy, which is great, and the Worm Riders. So this is a real problem. I'm not sure what I'm going to do against it, but let's see with Elf turn 1. So Elf turn 1, I do send some Shamblers into the Kraken. I just want it to stay over there. I don't care if Shamblers live. I don't care if I win a combat. All I need is that Kraken to be over there for at least one more turn, right? I would love it if it was 2 turns, and I think to make that happen, my opponent will have to send in Ector, Placoderm, something, right? While the rest of my army figures out what to do. The first thing is to Alchemist Curse the bejesus out of these Placoderms, because they are defense 6, so I'm going to be going for that. My Blizzard, unfortunately, I can't see the Siren, which my opponent has correctly registered, is something that I would immediately do, is kill her off, or try to kill her off. So all I really have are the targets over here. I moved both my princes over here because it'll be the Shamblers first. Prince, Shamblers, right? I just need this stuff to stay over here, and that is my strategy. I moved both of my archers up. I moved this one up on the hill and in the forest, so they have the height advantage, and they're not obstructed. The other ones just enter the forest. Nyx moves forward a little bit just to get these Worm Riders within 18. I think the Placoderms are also within 18. That would have been the better choice, but like I said, I was pretty into my beers, but because it ignores stealthy, and I moved the Draken Riders forward. I'm not in charge range of any of my opponent's units, but several of them, well, the Nucker especially, is within mine, and I can do this little dance for a bit, where I'm going to threaten killing any unit that they decide to try to combat me with. So that's the plan. The ASB is over there with the Draken Riders, because yeah, that's where he goes. And let's see what the shooting does. So this is the end of the shooting phase. I don't do terrible, or this is the end of the turn. I don't do terribly well. So first off, I fire all my shots into the Worm Riders. I correctly send my Blizzard there as well, as their def 4. I think it's correct, because Blizzard ignores stealthy. So I shoot that. I shoot Nyx. I shoot my archers, all my archers, but they're on 6s because they moved and they have stealthy right now. I think this one's actually on 7s because this is also cover. So yeah, that's pretty bad. So that's 30 shots. The chariots I don't think had to move, so they might be on 5s. And then they also have fire oil, so they've got piercing. But I do pretty well. I end up doing 9 wounds to him, so I'm looking for an 8 to kill. I don't land it, but I do get a waiver, so that's pretty good. I actually do. I shouldn't say I don't land it. I actually roll the 8 twice. Oh no, I don't roll the 8 twice. I roll the 8 once, and then I roll a 7. So yeah, a little unfortunate. And then I hurt the Kraken. I think I do 3 or 4 wounds to it, but no real deal. Obviously, wounds on the Kraken would be great, but it's regen 4+, and by the time I get around to trying to kill it, I'm not sure it'll matter. So who cares? And we move into turn 2 for the Trident Realm. So turn 2, Neritica, we have the Wavered Worm Riders moving backwards. We have this Knucker, which was within charge range. I think that this was planned. I hope it was planned, because I want the killing the Knucker over here would be pretty good, as I can kill it and then back up D3, right, and be out of charge range of these units because my opponent did not push very far. And if he did push, I can shoot at them, right? I have plenty of shots. So that's the plan. And then these Placoderms go for the flank charge onto my Shamblers. Again, I don't really care about that. I don't want the Placoderms engaging. I guess the only part of that I care about is I don't want the Placoderms pushing forward, and this does let them move a little bit forward. So, happens though. The Siren has come around. She's right there and is getting ready to target my Wizard. So yeah, correctly, ascertaining that my Alchemist Curse is the biggest threat on this flank and going to remove it. So yeah, we're gonna try to kill her lickety-split, and that's about it. I think the rest of my opponent's army just sort of rolls backwards. Again, this opponent is a very cagey opponent, and I think that's a Trident Realm. Trident Realm really fits that style of play really well because they don't really want to charge you until they do, right? So anyway, they move backwards. And here's this combat, or as I like to call it, a clusterfuck. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so on the right here, you can see the Shamblers are gone. That's to be expected. Now, here's the other bit, is that we're playing on clock, and I made my opponent roll all 60 of those dice. Later, I just let him take double ones, but right now we're on clock. So to make up that, I've had a couple of cups difference. And the Knucker does do a couple of wounds to my Draken Riders, actually a few more than I thought it would, because I think it hits with all 6 of his attacks, which is not what you want to see with a Thunder 3 or Thunder 4 monster, but still not enough to waver me at least, and we're ready to go. And we move, oh, this was the other bad part. My opponent rolls the regen, and look at that, it's down to 2. Regen 7 wounds off of it, so very unfortunate, but that's sort of like the game with Trident Realm, is just trying to... You take damage, and regen is either, it's a big hit or miss sort of ability where all of my shooting, right, is now very subpar because I didn't actually do that much damage, right? The healing potion, I had wounded these Placoderms, and my opponent correctly used their healing potion. I mean, granted, I had to remind them of it, but I'm sure he would have remembered eventually. And remove 2 damage, and 2 damage off a def 6 unit is a big deal, especially now that my Alchemist Curse is disordered due to the Siren. So yeah, interesting turn, and we move into turn 2 for the Elves. So turn 2 Elves. Oof. So yeah, if we roll a picture backwards, you can see these Shamblers are in the front of the Placoderms, but again, I can still cast... Oh no, I'm in the flank. Interesting. I actually thought I'd gone for a surge there, but apparently I was in the flank naturally. So yeah, I go for this flank charge. I take my Wizard and I just run, because if the Siren is not dealt with this turn, or at least wavered, I don't want to lose my Alchemist Curse for next turn. So I'm just gonna run off. She's not gonna chase me over here. And again, this impassable piece is very large. It's very difficult to get through, and we can't see under it or anything like that. So it's completely opaque. So yeah, she runs away. I move both my princes forward. There's no... I guess this Knucker could charge in on my prince, try to kill it. I'll run into the other prince. So that wasn't the best plan. Oh, I know what happened. This prince right here is exactly on the barrier to make it so when my Shamblers charge, they are not hindered. I would love my Shamblers to do some serious damage to the Placoderms, because Placoderms don't have regen, and the only healing in the army is Emerald. So that's the plan. We have the rest of my army just sort of sitting still in the middle here. Well, no, I guess these archers moved forward to get some shots as my opponent moved out of 24, so I have to do that to shoot. And then I move Nyx around to target these Worm Riders because I can just barely see them. And then if I can push them off this way, I can get some, I can push them out of charge range of mine. Draken, or make it easier to push them out of charge range of the Draken Riders by killing the Knucker and backing up D3. I also have a breath attack to do onto them to maybe just kill them, along with these archers who can see, but they will have cover and stealthy again. So on 6s. And here we go. On turn, oof, this is the end of turn shot. You can see, this is what I saw. It's all blurry all the time. So first off, I didn't kill this Knucker, which sucks super hard. Didn't kill that Knucker with that horde of Drakens. Not the best dice, but I do push the Worm Rider horde. Why are they that way? I think my opponent put them the wrong way. Maybe we're both too far into our cups. But anyway, I did hit these Worm Riders and I wavered them. So I did not roll that well for hits or wounds. Granted, it was mostly on 6s, but I rolled great for that waver. And that is super necessary, as the Draken Riders can now tank a lot more damage. I fired the archers into, I believe I fired the archers into this Knucker. And I do 2 or 3 damage. I'm just looking for, you know, a nice little bit of pip damage there to deal with it. I throw both my cats at the Siren. I get her to double 1s. Oh no, I know what happened. I fired both my cats at the Siren, got her to double 1s, and then I don't need to use the Blizzard anymore. So I use the Blizzard on the Knucker. I managed 2 wounds, which is not enough. These archers fire into the... No, not into the Placoderms. These archers must have fired at the Knucker as well and done nothing. So that sucks. Along with my chariots. So a combined chariot, archers, and Blizzard did 2 wounds to the Knucker. I do pretty well with these Shamblers though. You can see I did an extra 6 damage with that flank charge. That's solid onto the Placoderms. And then when I roll my nerve checks, I don't get the boxcar here, or I think that's actually an 11. But because I think they're a 20-22. But then the Siren, I do in fact roll the double 1, or not the double 1 there. I think I needed a 4. I got her to double 1 waver, right, which is what I wanted. So I roll a 3. Don't get the 4 to kill her. And she is just wavered in the back there. And we move forward into turn 3 for the Trident Realm. So this is when the turn dial starts disappearing. It is turn 3, but I forgot to take a picture of it. So first off, on the left here, we have Nikushi and this disordered Knucker going into my Draken Riders. The Drakens have 3 wounds on them, and I don't think that's anywhere near enough damage with these 2 units, given that this one is it's a monster with 6 attacks and no Thunderous, so it's 6 attacks on 3s and 5s. Who cares? Nikushi's deadly, but not that deadly. We have Emerald moving forward to protect the Heart Piercers a little bit, trying to grant them cover. So even when granting units stealthy, or in this case it ran, so it's not granting anyone stealthy, but still granting them cover with movement. Again, a canny move. The Worm Riders that were wavered just back up a little bit. The Worm Raiders that were wavered on turn 1 now decide to move forward and engage the line. We have the Knucker I did 2 wounds to going into the front of my Herder. I'm not too worried about that. Right now we're measuring, this is a line of sight to see if Nyx can see these Worm Raiders. She cannot. We have the Kraken going into the Shamblers that had flank charged the Placoderms, while those Placoderms charge, I believe, into one of my princes. Because, so charge into one of my princes because I can get an overrun into my tree herder, right? So I am afraid of that, but not terribly, because it's only crush 1. I think my tree herder can hold that for at least 1 turn. And if it does, I think I kill those units through some mixture of shooting and charging. So that's the plan. And here we go at the end of the turn. The freaking line of sight blockers or things still here. So yeah, this goes about how I thought it would. They go into my Draken Riders. They do more damage than I really wanted them to do, but they do not kill me off or waver me, so that's great. We have the Worm here, the Knucker going into my tree herder and doing okay. But here's the real kicker, is that when my opponent goes into the stupid prince with a horde of placoderms, they're still hindered because they don't have Pathfinder. So they're hitting me on 5s and then they're wounding me on 4s, and they do like 2 wounds or 3 wounds or something, which is nowhere near enough to even waver this guy. So I'm ready to go. Ector and the Kraken had charged into my Shamblers. They also don't kill them off, so a pretty bad turn for my opponent, and let's see if the Elves can capitalize on it for their turn 3. So turn 3 Elves, everything comes back around. We have Nyx deciding to take a flank charge. I know I hate doing flank charges with Nyx, but in this case I needed both these units dead, because the plan here is to kill the wounded Knucker with Nyx, charge into the front of Nikushi, kill her with the Draken Riders, and then I measured this line of sight, and it's like 50.1% of the frontage of these units can be seen by my both my ASB and this unit of archers. So this unit does not have cover against them, and it is beautiful. It is ridiculously good. That's going to be some 4+ shooting. If I can drop this out, it's just the Worm Riders, the wounded ones. Granted, they're regenning in the background and Emerald sealing them, but it'll be these Worm Riders and Emerald versus my entire left flank. And then in the center, I have my Tree Daddy going into the Knucker. I can 1-round it. It's possible, but it's not terribly likely. I would love to do it because then I could overrun or turn to phase or whatever. I decided to not send my Prince into the Placoderms because why would I ever do that? I could have sent the Prince into Ector, and that might have been the smart move. I'm certain that would have been the smart move. I'm not sure what I was doing with the Prince there, but yeah, I probably should have gone into the Prince with Ector, and then no, Ector does have ensnare. No, they both have ensnare. Yeah, because then I could have gone into Ector with the Shamblers as well and just hope to one round him, but I don't do that. I move my Alchemist Curse back over to shoot at the Placoderms. Maybe I thought I would lock the line of sight and was forgetting that individuals don't care about that. But so I do have an unobstructed Alchemist Curse. It's very, this is a very narrow area, but it sees a huge amount of that base frontage. So no cover there. The Chariots are shooting here. There is cover. Oh no, yeah, there is cover because I'm only at 3. And then I send a Prince into the very wounded Siren. I think she's on 10 wounds, so looking to lock that kill up. I'm hitting on 4s with elite and then wounding on 3s, so I'm hoping to at least do that 1 wound and just kill her off. So that's the plan, and let's see how it goes. Here's the end of turn 3. It's a bit of a flub. So on the left, things go very well. Both these work. I kill off both Nikushi and the Knucker, along with the Heart Piercers with the shooting support. So everything there works. And then in the middle, things start to fall apart, which is, first off, Tree Daddy here only manages 4 wounds on the Knucker. I'm not too surprised about that. Knuckers have ensnare, so I was looking for some pretty big rolls there. 4 wounds is respectable. But I don't manage a waiver or anything, but I do turn Thunderous off, so that's great. And then against the Placoderms, they were already sitting on what, like 9 or 10 wounds? Quite a few wounds. And with my Alchemist Curse and all my shooting, I was not able to actually get them killed. I do, however, waiver them. So that's pretty spectacular. Against the Kraken, I do like 2 or 3 more wounds to it, who cares? And that's about that. And then against the freaking Siren, I do a wound to her. No, I don't. I do 0 wounds to her. That's what happens. I don't hit her. And you can see down here the remnants of my beer. This is the end of the Growler, so things are getting great in my strategy mind. So yeah. Anyway, moving into turn 4. Turn 4 for the Trident Realm, they get a chance to rebuttal against my violence. So first off, we've got the Worm Riders going into the front of the Drakens, hoping to finish them off. The Drakens are on quite a few wounds now. I think they ended at like 10 or 11 wounds after Nikushi charged them. So yeah, respectable. Then we have Emerald going into my archers. It is a hindered charge, but that only puts Emerald on a 3+, so meh. We have the Knucker that is both hindered for charging over a barrier and disordered because of my tree daddy. I'm hoping that equals 0 wounds on these archers, because then I will just, Gatling gun them away. But yeah, you can see my banner is now broken. That actually happened in game 2 before I started drinking. I broke that long before that, so unfortunate, but it happens. Tree daddy gets front charge. It might look like a rear charge, but that's just because trees are difficult. So yeah, I get front charged by these worm riders, and then Ector charges into my prince, because again the placoderms are in fact wavered. With the siren able to do whatever she wants, and what she wants to do is drain life. Finally the Kraken went into my shamblers, looking to finish them off finally. So we'll see what happens. The siren really wanted the siren's call my wizard again, but at least drunk Riley figured out to hide behind height 2. So at least there's that. So let's see how it goes on the end of turn 4. Starting on the left, you can see the Draken Riders are dunzo, so they were killed off. The Worm Riders are now facing Nyx, although Nyx can just leave. So we'll see about that. The archers get disordered by Imraloth. That is to be expected. Only managing 4 wounds, though. I guess that's okay, with only 10 attacks on 3s and 3s with elite. So 4 is pretty good. The friggin' Knucker does 4 wounds to me on 6 attacks on 4s and 4s, though. So that's unfortunate. I'm also disordered there. I just forgot to mark it. The Tree Daddy, thankfully, does not go down and doesn't get wavered. Feeling good about that. With Ector finishing off that prince. I think the drain life also went on this prince to make sure it died. It either went on this prince or it didn't do anything. So anyway, and then heals a couple wounds on the placoderms, which are down to 16 wounds now. But I still have most of my army. The shamblers are easily finished off by this Kraken, so it's eaten all my trees. The Sea's Fury is not to be messed with. But let's see what turn 4 elves looks like. We're getting down there on time. Like I think right now I have like 5 minutes left on my clock. Or no, I probably have 5 minutes at the end of the turn. But see, here we go. This proxy base is my chariots, who finally get to charge a thing in the game. So they go into the side of the Knucker. I don't know why I started in the middle, but they go into the side of the Knucker here, along with the countercharge from my elven archers. The other archers countercharge Imraloth. I have so the Worm Riders are trapped. The point here, I've got an ASB here that I've sacrificed because I don't want to lose my archers, as currently I am dominating this token with these archers, and they could have easily flank charged me. But the plan here, I've got Nyx on the objective, on the primary, right? All I need to do is kill off these Worm Riders. I'm going to fire a Gatling gun, breath 10, and then I'm going to fire Nyx, and I'm not going to push the Worm Riders. They're just going to stay here. So that's the plan. And elsewhere in the middle, we have Tree Daddy going back into these Worm Riders, hoping to finish them off. And I'm just going to fire 1 Alchemist Curse at the placoderms and hope the dice don't betray me, because it would be really bad if those placoderms can charge, on top of the fact that my wizard will likely die for this action, because Ector I guess just Ector, the Kraken can't see her. And we see the Siren gets charged again by my prince. I'm hoping to finally finish her off, and let's see how it goes. So turn here is, oof, that is bad. So first off, I only do 3 damage to Imraloth. 3 damage is actually pretty good, but I boxcar him, so I get that waiver. Nice. Lucky waiver, it's what I want. And then over here, you can see on the left, you can see I've killed off these Worm Riders. So that's going great. And then I've killed off the Knucker with my chariots, who are now facing like so, but are a proxy base. So that's good. Tree Daddy does not manage to kill off these Worm Riders, and in fact does not waver them, but I do manage to kill the placoderms, which is amazing. And again, I charge into the Siren and I do not do any wounds, so she's still up and able. So it ends up with like a very weird turn where like I don't kill off the Siren, who I just need to hit. I just need 1 wound on her, and she's still ready to go. I do the thing that probably should happen. They're at 16 wounds, or on average it happens, right? So on 16 wounds, I do like 4 to 5 wounds with Alchemist Curse against them. So yeah, on average they're dead. So I get that off on double ones dead, right? So I get them off. This is also another thing that's not quite double ones on average, but it's pretty close. It's like a 4 to kill them. And then this is just super swingy, but I get it and it nails it. But I get this boxcar here, and that sort of brings the turn together. So let's see what my opponent can do with their turn 5. So turn 5. I wish you could see the clock in this picture. We are running so low on time. At the end, like I said, at the end of that turn, I have like 5 minutes. My opponent has like maybe 3, I think, to do this turn. So, starts out, Emerald has nothing to do, right? So that's whatever. The Kraken here just moves forward to grab the objective. Oh no, I'm sorry, it doesn't just move forward. It charges the flank of Tree Daddy along with these worms. Got to get rid of them because I have 2 unit strength and then 1 unit strength, so 3. And if I kill off these worm riders with a double charge, or if I kill off this Kraken with a double charge, I will either win this objective or contest it. Either way is fine for the elves. We have the Siren moving forward over here to cast Drain Life onto Tree Daddy, making sure he goes down, right? And also getting some heal onto these Worm Riders. So that's the plan, and it does work. The tree herder dies, but that's it for the turn. Oh no, I'm sorry. Ector also runs off and charges my wizard, I think. But we'll see about that on turn 5 for elves. Turn 5 elves. Where did Ector go? Oh, I'm sorry. No, Ector also charged the tree. Weird. Didn't charge my wizard. So we don't have to charge. We're just going to shoot the stupid dragon. So I keep my Nyx barely within 3 of my primary. I shoot at Emerald. I end up doing, so I've got that shooting. I've got the ASB could shoot there. Probably will shoot at the Worm Riders. And then I have my archers here to shoot again at either the dragon or the Worm Riders. The archers here to shoot at the Worm Riders. I'm going to just, I sidestepped with my chariots to allow the archers to shoot at the Worm Riders, so they also will shoot there. And then I have an Alchemist Curse that can go on Ector, that can go on the Worm Riders, depends. And then finally I have my Prince going for that Holy Grail. Let's kill off this stupid Siren. And here are the rolls. So I do 5 wounds with Alchemist Curse to Ector, and I double one it. So it's not a relevant double one, but I got it, so I gotta have that picture. Unfortunately, I don't have any more pictures, so we'll have to go back one. And so let's count out the points right now. So I have 2 points for that primary right there. And then there's a secondary right here that I have control of, so I have 3 points. My opponent currently has control over this secondary for 1 point. No one has this, and no one has their primary. So I'm currently winning. It doesn't matter what happens. Well, I mean, I guess it does matter, but yeah, I go into the Worm Riders. I get the kill there because I pushed them to double one. I get that double one on Ector, so that nothing happens there. I do kill off the Siren, so I've got her. She's out, and then I don't get a lucky waiver on Emerald again, but I'm not super worried about it. So at the end of the game, we do not get even to play a turn 6 because our round timer was way over and the TO was super anal about us being out by 5 p.m., which I guess is fair as we had dinner reservations. But yeah, so we don't get to play a turn 6. I think at the end of this, my opponent has like 20 seconds and I have maybe 30 seconds, or maybe I have 20 seconds and he has 30 seconds. Point is, we have no time. So yeah, it ends up being an elf victory again. And my opponent here gets a bit more attrition. I think I only got a 17-point game out of this, something like that, 16 or 17 points. So yes, it's a good game. I get a lot of killing done, and I finally beat this stupid Trident Realm army. I mean, I beat it several times, but I've never beaten it in a tournament. This opponent and I have played in every Kings of War event I have played in, and I have lost every single game. Most of them are tight like this, so I'm really happy to have won it. And at the end of day 1, I'm in a pretty good spot with 3 wins, 120, 119, and 117, I think. So yeah, some great points right there. And I'm ready for day 2. But until then, bye.